Monday, January 14th. 6-game slate. It's a little nice, calm way to get back into the slate. But Adam, talk to me about the Wizards game.
It was a lot of fun. It started out pretty slowly. Thought that I was going to be like leaving at halftime to go watch football, but yeah, I mean they came back, made it a really good game. Double overtime loss, but it was a good time.
Bradley Beal, man.
Yeah,
Nasty.
he's phenomenal. Like I messaged you during the game, but I feel like I undervalue Bradley Beal just because I am a Wizards fan and I'm so used to them disappointing every year.
Sure.
But it's pretty incredible how good he is.
Satoransky, no career game while you're there.
Literally forgot that he was playing.
Only on days where we say specifically that we don't have to pay attention to him does he go absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, as usual, we are brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. Let's get the plugs out of the way now. If you'd like to sign up for Thrive, I'm dropping the link into the chat, as I normally do, bit.ly/Awesemo. You can get $10 on a $10 deposit, $20 on 100, and $50 on 200. Thrive is a new DFS service based on prop bets. So you'll pick 10 props out of a list of 20, and you'll be picking whether you think a particular player will go over or under certain points, rebounds, assists, or a combination of all of those things. So at the end, Adam and I will walk through 5 of our favorites. We also have the promo code NBA Strategy, 7-day free trial if you're interested in coming to awesemo.com. It's not 7-day free trial. Run that back. 7 days free trial, donezo. 50% off your first month package. So any monthly package that you select, you can get 50% off of that if you use NBA Strategy. Got so used to saying that 7-day free trial one that we'll have to break free of that mistake. But yeah, 50% off. You can't beat it. It's a good deal. All right, we've got 6 games. There is no value to speak of on Yahoo right now. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of it on FanDuel. I mentioned in our Slack chat before we started that normally I try to narrow down my player pool just to like guys that can functionally be rostered, legitimate options. And when I do that, if I use the formulas that I use to automatically set exposure caps, my weighted average salary for like an 8-man lineup is $290, which is almost a full 50% above the cap of 200. It's brutal. There's nothing out there that makes fitting these lineups in better. So we got a lot to dig into. You ready?
Yeah.
Brooklyn Nets hosting the Boston Celtics. What a great way to start. And this schedule sucks. Every half hour, except for the Jazz Kings, there's an hour in between, but one game at a time trickled throughout the night. Nets 108.25 implied total. Celtics 112.75. We'll start on the Nets side. This is a tough one for me, but DK looks a little bit better. Sorry to all the FanDuel peeps right now. D'Angelo Russell for 6,500 is probably the best play out of anything on the Nets on any site. Otherwise, then you're just looking at Spencer Dinwiddie or maybe Joe Harris. This is a really bad spot.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on the D'Angelo Russell price on DraftKings, though. I mean, it's the same thing we saw against Toronto, except even cheaper. There's plenty of risk with Russell in terms of Kenny Atkinson changing his minutes around and it being a tough matchup. But the upside's just through the roof, and $6,500 basically just takes away almost all of that risk and just leaves you with potential upside. So Russell really jumps out to me, but beyond that, it's a bunch of stuff that I don't really want.
I know. That's like Ed Davis for 3,700 on DraftKings is a valid tournament play if you think that this game breaks in a way where he could catch a couple extra minutes. But as a point per minute guy, there's not a lot of value elsewhere. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson could be back today. I've got him in for 20 minutes right now. He is questionable. That muddies up the waters a little bit. But even still, this is a matchup against a solid Celtics defense and not a lot of great pricing options outside of Russell. Like, I don't want Russell for 7,500 on FanDuel. I don't, if you're playing 150, you're clearly getting there, but it's not like he's some fantastic value. Dinwiddie for 5,700 on FanDuel is probably the best option from Brooklyn. And then all these guys look terrible on Yahoo, in my opinion. Just a really rough spot to start the night.
Yeah, pretty brutal. You mentioned Dinwiddie on FanDuel. I agree that price tag's fine. Even the 5,500 on DraftKings is okay, but I just like the 6,500 for Russell a lot more.
Yeah, agreed. There's just there's more ceiling in that Russell price.
Yeah.
God, I wish I had something. I mean, if Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is out, Kurucs becomes a nice value play for 3,800 on DraftKings. It just kind of gives him the opportunity to have a couple extra minutes. You can probably take a look at Travion Graham. I don't know what to do with Brooklyn, especially if Rondae Hollis-Jefferson plays.
Yeah, I mean, if Hollis-Jefferson's back, it really just throws a wrench into everything else more so than, is already the case.
Yeah. All right, Boston side. Kyrie, still 8,900 on FanDuel. Or I don't mean still, but still under 9K. I think he looks really nice from a FanDuel perspective. 9K on DraftKings, $39 on Yahoo. I'm fine with those prices. Jason Tatum, only 6K on FanDuel. Basically, Boston's the opposite of the Nets. They have much better pricing on FanDuel. Marcus Morris, still only 5,100. Marcus Smart, 4,700. Jaylen Brown, 4,000. If that's a direction you want to go, you have to assume something will look decent in the end for Boston. But again, nothing is really standing out to me outside of Kyrie. Do you have any interest in the Boston side?
Al Horford, I think, is worth paying attention to, especially on DraftKings, where you can roster him at power forward. He played 30 minutes against Orlando. They said before that game that his minutes cap was being extended to 30-plus minutes. And he's just the kind of guy that you need all those minutes. But I think the price tag is cheap enough where, especially in this very, very good matchup against Brooklyn, I think that he can give us a pretty reasonable game, probably at relatively low ownership. So I'll consider him, especially where I can roster him at power forward. Kyrie on FanDuel, I like that price tag a lot. On DraftKings, if I get there, I get there.
I had Horford in for 27 minutes, but from what you just said, I just bumped him up 2 more just to get him up a little bit higher, but he's still not even really popping as anything fantastic for me. God, this is going to be a murderous slate. We're going to need some stupid news at like 6 o'clock. All right, ownership is in. Russell, the chalk on DK, which makes perfect sense to me. Looked pretty flat. 14% expected ownership on Horford on DK. So the public likes your sentiment there. 28 for Russell on DK. Makes perfect sense to me on a 6-gamer. Otherwise, a lot of the ownership on FanDuel coming from Boston. Double digits for Tatum, Morris, Hayward, Brown, Rozier. Only 7% for Kyrie, which is very appealing to me. I'm going to dig into that one a little bit more, but that feels like a spot where I'll be over the field. Yeah, that's a good point. His ownership is low right now. He is questionable today with whatever the hell is wrong with him right now.
Kyrie?
Yeah.
The eye thing?
Or
something else?
I don't know. Chat's saying that he's a game questionable. Right quad contusion.
Oh, okay.
It's unclear when Irving hurt his thigh, and we may not know more until after Boston's shoot-around. So keep an eye on it.
So the slate has no value, then Kyrie's going to get ruled out, and everyone's just going to have the easiest plays in the world with Rozier and Smart.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah, that really doesn't change anything. It just, if you're playing on Yahoo and that's where the value opens up, it just makes everybody just makes that you're playing 7-on-7 instead of 8v8.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
it would be a boost for Horford, I think, if Kyrie's out. Generally, you see his assists go up.
Yeah. Yeah, like Terry Rozier. Well, Terry Rozier, $19 on Yahoo right now. He doesn't even open up as something ridiculous. Terry Rozier is more expensive on Yahoo right now than Marcus Smart.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I wish sites did that more, actually, where like the guy's a completely useless play when Kyrie's in, and when Kyrie's out, he's like a fantastic play.
Yeah.
Like, just price him to where he is if Kyrie's out.
Yeah, that's a good point. You shouldn't be playing Terry Rozier one way or the other. So price him to the point where you would have to think about it.
Right. Whereas DraftKings right now has him at $3,700.
Yeah. Like he automatically gets owned, 60, 70%?
Yeah, and it's not even bad.
No. That's good. Yeah, that's exactly where he should be. For him to not hit value if Kyrie is out, he'd have to get hurt.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, let's get out of this slop. Here we go. The Houston Rockets hosting the Memphis Grizzlies. 106.25 implied total for the Rockets, 100.25 for the Grizzlies. So Rockets 6-point favorites in Memphis. Slow-mo out for a couple weeks. So they'll be cycling in a bunch of other slop for Memphis, but you know where we need to start here. 13,300 on FanDuel, 12,400 on DraftKings, and $59 on Yahoo. This is probably one of the worst spots you can get for James Harden, and he's still fantastic.
Yeah, no question. I mean, back to back against Memphis. If you're looking for reasons not to play James Harden, this is the matchup and the situation. But again, I mean, he's during the stretch where he's just been absolutely phenomenal. He hasn't even really had that many easy matchups because we've just had so many shows where it's like we've had to say basically, yeah, the matchup sucks, but it's James Harden. And that's the case here. I mean, he's already torched this Memphis team, I think twice this season, once with Chris Paul. He's absolutely matchup proof. The more interesting part for me is just that there is so little value on this slate, and if people are going to play James Harden and he's going to be really highly owned, that means that roster construction wise, by rostering him, you're going to end up on very similar roster construction with very similar kind of fringe punt plays.
Yep.
So, maybe that would be the argument to me for not rostering him. It has nothing to do with the matchup. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah, he 47% usage rate, 26 field goal attempts, almost 13 free throws is where I have him for today. Refresh this. Projecting him for 38, 10, and 7 is just, I don't even know what to say anymore. Yeah, Yeti Express DFS in YouTube chat says, can we stop the show for a second and mention that he shot 1 for 17 from 3 and still put up 70? I mean, that's insanity.
Right, and that not 1 for 17, but that's kind of what was happening at the beginning of this stretch where when people still weren't rostering him very much, and it was like he was putting up 65 fantasy points and he was shooting 35%. Like he can be inefficient, but he's still going to score a million fantasy points.
That's just 11 of 32 from the field, 1 for 17 from 3, 15 of 16 from the line. He went 38, 12, and 9 with only 4 turnovers. What in the world happens if he drops 5 of those threes?
Right.
That's 50. He goes for 52.
It's incredible.
And 90 fantasy points. Yeah, so that's why you play him. But you make a good point. Roster construction does become super similar. You're just running out of additional money to spend on people. And then you just have to get a lot of really dubious decisions correct.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, and this is, if we assume that value doesn't open up, one way that I tend to approach spots like that is if I'm someone that, is like hand building like 3 or 4 lineups or whatever, and just taking shots at large field tournaments, then I would probably look to go balanced more and just hope that Harden doesn't go nuts. If you're someone playing 150 lineups, you can just cycle through, so much. You have access to so much more of the value across, 150 lineups than you do across 3 or 4, where you have to like somehow hit the nuts with random terrible players. So I think that in spots like this, it really does. My approach would change based on how many lineups I play.
That's a very good point. Right now we have his ownership at 20% on both sites, FanDuel and DK. I think it's really easy to be above that number if you're playing a ton of lineups. And then, if you were in a 5 max, 205, then you're over. And although I would assume that his ownership would actually climb in a 5 max scenario, but 20% it honestly feels low.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if he actually came in at 20%, being someone that is playing 150 lineups, I would assume that I'm coming in over that.
Right. Let's talk about the rest of Houston here, which I don't really see a ton to talk about. Clint Capella for 7,500 is my number 4 center on DraftKings. Also getting the 20% ownership treatment there. All the prices on DraftKings a lot better. you can talk me into a little bit of Austin Rivers. Otherwise, I don't have much interest in anything for Houston. This is a terrible spot for everyone else.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the Capella price tag on DraftKings for me. I like. Beyond that, again, if value doesn't open up and you're playing 150 lineups, then you end up with some Gerald Green or whoever out of that, those Houston wings, then whatever. But they're not guys that you should be very confident in.
Harden looked fatigued last night. Who cares? He shot 30-something times. I don't care how tired he is. It does not matter. It's not like he's coming off the floor. It's not like he's going to stop gunning. He went 1 for 17 and was still good enough. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Memphis. No slow-mo. Bummer. So sad that I'm not going to be able to be sad about having him in lineups.
Yeah.
Marc Gasol, 7,800 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DK, $28 on Yahoo. I really like Gasol here on both Yahoo and FanDuel. Yahoo in particular, only $28. This feels like a pretty nice spot for Gasol. We'll lump Conley in here, 8,300 on FanDuel, 76 on DK, 30 on Yahoo. What do you want to do with Gasol and Conley today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the matchup is fine. Whatever I get to, I'll be fine with. Like, it's not an appealing game for me from a pace standpoint. But I think that, especially like looking at DraftKings for me, where like Conley 76 and Gasol 73, I think there's plenty of upside at both of those price points for them.
Yeah, I'm a little more dubious of Conley, but admittedly, I have not dug in deeply to the Memphis numbers with Kyle Anderson off yet. So there are only so many priorities in the morning, and digging into Memphis is really difficult to do before the coffee sets in.
Yeah, for sure.
Who do you see as the biggest benefactors for slow-mo being out?
So against Miami, when he got hurt, they started Justin Holiday in the second half. He played a total of 6 minutes in that half. I don't really know what to make of that, but I do assume that Justin Holiday gets the biggest boost. Okay. I think that most likely it just ends up being a situation where everyone sucks.
Yeah.
But Holiday would be the one that I assume gets the biggest boost from him being out.
So I have Holiday in for 24 minutes right now. I have Shelvin Mack in for 25, Garrett Temple for 32, Omri Caspi in for 20. Do you hear anything egregious there?
No, that all sounds pretty much right.
And like that, I mean, that could shake out much differently. You can shave a couple minutes off of somebody and get Holiday up to 28 or 30, and that I wouldn't be shocked by any part of that. Same for Mac. I mean, same for Caspi even. It's going to take a little bit of time to see how this shakes out because they kind of have all of these interchangeable parts of not that great.
Right, exactly.
That's what makes it a little tricky. Do you want any part of Jaren Jackson or JaMychal Green?
Yeah, I'm interested in Jackson at 51 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
I mean, like Kyle Anderson being out, it at least forces all of these, interchangeable guys to play those positions and not Jaren Jackson's. Not that they really take minutes from him anyway. It just, thins the rotation a bit. But, if you're going to get around 30 minutes from Jackson, as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, I think the price tag's just way too cheap for the upside that he gives you.
Completely agree. 5,100 on DraftKings is kind of nuts. $19 on Yahoo, even more crazy. He's my number 2 power forward there. 6,500 on FanDuel, I don't even find to be terribly egregious today. It just so happens that, like, I don't know, it's really hard to get someone at 6,500 if you decide to play James Harden or Anthony Davis.
Right.
And then if you want to play Garrett Temple on FanDuel, I don't think that's the most ridiculous move. Same for Shelvin Mack. They're both 3,600. They're both guys that you can potentially drop. And today, more than ever, feels like a day where you want to make sure you have a $3,500 or $3,600 guy in on FanDuel. You need every bit of extra cash you can have for your 8 of 9. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's where I'm at. I don't think we have anything else here.
No, that's it for me.
San Antonio Spurs hosting Charlotte Hornets. 115.75 implied total for the Spurs, 107.25 for the Hornets. So 8-point favorites in San Antonio. This is a sneaky good spot for San Antonio. DeMar DeRozan coming off as my number one, I guess, shooting guard, right? Or is he a small forward on these sites? I can't keep tabs anymore. I know what positions they play in my head. Yeah, so he's a small forward now because positions are different. I should just add +1 to fucking everybody in the league at this point.
Wait, he's a small forward on FanDuel now?
He's a small forward on Yahoo. That much I can tell you. He is he's a shooting guard on FanDuel. So that's, I feel a little bit better now that
he's both on DraftKings.
Okay. Perfect. 8,900 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DK, $34 on Yahoo. He's number one for me across all three sites, looking at about 20% ownership. But with Rudy Gay out, DeMar DeRozan has just been a much better fantasy point per minute guy. And at these price tags, he is the guy that I want to have a lot of in the lineups where I don't have James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, he burned me the other night against Oklahoma City in a tough matchup, but I think this is a much better one. It's still a pace-up spot for San Antonio. It's not a particularly great Charlotte defense.
No.
Rudy Gay off, it does open up more opportunities for DeRozan, but also he just plays so many minutes in competitive games. Since the start of December, which is kind of what I've been using for San Antonio projections, because at the beginning of the year we saw Aldridge kind of taking a back seat to DeRozan, and that hasn't been the case anymore. But since the start of December, still without Rudy Gay on the floor, you have a 33.5% usage rate for DeRozan with a 29% assist percentage, averaging 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. Aldridge averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. So, both of those guys, I think, in very good spots here.
There you go. Yeah, I like them both. Aldridge, 8,600 FanDuel, 82 on DK, 32 on Yahoo. He's number 2 at his position in FanDuel, 3rd in DraftKings, 2nd on Yahoo. So I like these guys quite a bit. Another guy I like quite a bit, Derek White, continues to just grade out really well for me. 5,900 on FanDuel, $18 on Yahoo. A little bit less interested on DK just because of the way positions break out. I have him as a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. I loved having a lot of Derek White a couple nights ago. We'll just ignore the fact that he played 50 minutes or whatever. But it worked out really nicely. Do you have any interest in Derek White?
Yeah, I do. He's someone who I hadn't really been on earlier, but things are finally changing for him. And it's like he was having good games a couple of weeks ago because he was shooting, 8 of 10 from the field and being super efficient, but his playing time hadn't really changed. Nothing had really changed, but he's playing more minutes now. I mean, he's playing north of 30 minutes pretty much every game. That's something weird doesn't happen. He has, since the start of December, without Gay on the floor, he's averaged 0.93 fantasy points per minute, has a 20.5% usage percentage. So it's a benefit for him as well. I do think that, he's a good play here. I agree with you that the price tag, like if I'm looking at his price tag, I'm looking at DeRozan, I'm looking at Aldridge on DraftKings, like he's 3rd in line there.
Yeah.
But, I still think that he's a, perfectly fine play.
Yeah, the guys that are in like the middle tier like that, because of the dual positional stuff that happens on DraftKings, a guy like Derek White will naturally fall for, he still has to climb over guys like Kyrie and Kemba and Mike Conley and stuff. There just becomes too many options at quote-unquote guard. So White would not be a guy that I would have a ton of volume of. But on FanDuel, where you have to have 2-point guards, on Yahoo, where you don't have to have 2-point guards, but this price is a little bit better with only being $18. I'm happy to get there. And then after that, what do you want to do with Bertans? 4,400 FanDuel, 3,900 DraftKings, flat minimum on Yahoo.
I mean, he's one of those guys where I'm sure playing 150 lineups, I'll get to him at 3,900. This is a game, and I think it helps him, a game where it can certainly go small. Like, that San Antonio will play Aldridge at center. They're not opposed to doing that. But Charlotte looks to play Marvin Williams at the 5. It's not a game where I think San Antonio is going to have to play big to match up, and that opens more minutes for Davis Bertans. So I think that he is a very unappealing player from a fantasy standpoint, on a permanent basis. But with the lack of value on the slate right now in a pace-up spot where I think he can get 30 minutes, then, he basically has to be in play.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Anybody else from San Antonio? Forbes, Pirtle, Patty Mills, Bellinelli, the corpse of Pau Gasol?
Yeah, I mean, Bellinelli, Mills, those guys are all basically the same analysis as Bertans, except for they probably play less minutes, or almost definitely play less minutes. Um, so that's why, Bertans has the edge, but it's the same thing. Like, if one of those guys goes out and scores 30 fantasy points, it's not shocking, and they're really cheap, so having some makes sense.
Ducom in our premium Slack said something. It's about Harden, so I'm circling back a little bit. If Harden puts up 80 fantasy points, that means Memphis keeps it close if you have Harden, but the question doesn't really matter. I don't think that necessarily means that Memphis keeps it close.
No, he just scored 85 against Cleveland in like a 30-point win.
Yeah. There's just no one else to put up those fantasy points. It's not that he's like blowout proof, it's that he is the blowout.
Right. Yeah, Lofty and I talked about it before the Cleveland game. Without even getting into like thoughts on projecting blowouts in DFS, like in this particular case, if Houston blows out anyone, there's one player on that team that did it.
Yeah, if you want to, if it's going to be that day where like Gerald Green hits 8 threes or something, you tip your cap to it. But Harden's still going to have probably 30, 10, and 10 in that scenario. But yeah, it's just I'm not concerned. If they blow them out in 3 quarters, I assume Harden has 70 plus fantasy points easy.
Yep.
Sorry, I saw it and I knew that we wanted to kind of touch on something like that. Let's go to the Hornets side. $8,600 for Kemba Walker on FanDuel, down to $7,900 on DraftKings. $32. Man, it feels like a different season when Kemba was like up in the 9s, just going bananas out of the gate. How do you handle Kemba here? He's like, sure, I'll have some type guy right now, and it's so weird how that's changed with basically no changes to the team outside of Cody Zeller.
I think Cody Zeller makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I had been reading some stuff on, I don't remember if it was on like Hornets Twitter or something, but just talking about how good of a screener Cody Zeller is. And Kemba's like the number one, pick and roll frequency guy in the NBA. So I think not having Zeller out there does have a negative impact for him. And yeah, I mean, he's averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute without Zeller on the floor this season. I think he's at like 1.28 alongside Zeller. So it certainly makes a difference for me, and it is a tough matchup here against San Antonio. That being said, the price tag has gotten to a point where, just from an upside standpoint, so Kyrie at 9K I think is fine, but you can save 1,100 and get Kemba. I think that they give you pretty similar ceilings.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing to stop Kemba from having one of those days where he's out gunning, trying to keep the team in the game. 19% ownership kind of gives me a little bit of pause, following the price a little bit, but he's ranked 7th on FanDuel, 6th on DK, 5th on Yahoo. So I'm much more likely to get him on Yahoo tonight. But if you need to save some money on DK from going up to somebody big, like that's a natural spot to lock in. I don't know, $5,200 Jeremy Lamb probably looks pretty good for the Hornets. Otherwise, I don't see much of anything here.
Yeah, I think that Lamb's appealing. It is concerning he only played like 26 minutes against the Kings last game. I thought that he would play 32 to 34. That's still I'm still going to project him for like 32 minutes. It's just that we've seen all season long this rotation kind of be all over the place. But again, I think that it helps him. Like I had mentioned with Davis Bertans, this game almost certainly is going to be played small for a large portion of it, and that just makes it easier for Lamb to find minutes on the floor, at multiple positions. So I think that it's pretty likely he plays north of 30 minutes here. And then the same goes for Marvin Williams, who's only 4,900 on DraftKings. You should get plenty of center minutes from Williams here, which are more productive minutes for him, but also you should just get 32 to 34 minutes total. So I think that there is some upside on him.
X Cossack said, when was the last time Kemba hit 45? That was December 29th on FanDuel. He was 9,900 that day, went for 62.8. The reason that I wanted to walk through this, he then went up to 10,300 on New Year's Eve. They beat Orlando by 25. He put up 35 fantasy points in 27 minutes. That's a great game. They just happened to smack Orlando. He went for 22 in 27 minutes the next day against Dallas, or the next game against Dallas, which is not a great game, but he only played 27 minutes. They got beat by 36. They got beat by 13 then at Denver. Again, not a great game, but they got smacked. This Phoenix game here, they won by 6, high scoring, only went for 35-9. That's kind of a bummer game. You would expect more out of him, but otherwise they got smacked by the Clippers, basically a 19-point loss. They got beat by 31 at Portland, and then they just lost again at Sacramento. So it's a 5-game stretch of road games. Lots of absolute beatings in there. That makes me like Kemba a little bit more. A lot of this, of his lack of production, has been simply they took a beating and he didn't necessarily play the same way that he would have. So if this game stays close, you would expect Kemba to, have the ability to keep it close. That was a terrible way to say that, but I like Kemba Walker, and I'm not really worried about those recent performances. I think that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, like I'm still concerned just because of the Cody Zeller thing, but
Agreed.
As far as Kemba's, like, I'm not changing my view of Kemba as a player or his ceiling based on what he's done over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that price just tumbling now.
Yeah.
The fact that he was 10-3 on New Year's Eve and is now down to 8,600 on FanDuel. Now, how long's Zeller been out? Like a month?
Feels like it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Like, what has changed about Kemba Walker from December 31st to today? I would say nothing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know when Zeller went out.
It's been a while now. I can actually figure that out. I have it here. Zeller's last game, December 31st. Fucking feels like it was November 30th. So cool. That's a very distinct line in the sand. Ignore everything that I just said. It seems to correspond completely with Cody Zeller. Should have did that research in reverse. Fuck. Oh god. Okay, look, I still like him at 7,900. It's neither here nor there. That's below his norm. Bismack Biyombo for 4,200 on FanDuel. Any interest?
No, not really. I mean, for one, obviously there's opportunity cost since you can only roster one center, but this just isn't a game where I think they need to play Biyombo that much. Who is he out there to defend? They don't need him against.
It's a Pau Gasol stopper, man.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just not a game where I expect Biyombo to play that many minutes.
Okay. Just making sure. More of a Marvin Williams, potentially MKG game. Or, I mean, this really strikes me as the Willie Hernan-Gomez game, but they probably won't dust him off as much as you would like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think Biyombo probably plays like 24. Hernan-Gomez maybe plays like 12 to 14, and then they just play small.
Yeah, I have Biyombo at 23, Hernan-Gomez at 15, so we are on the same path there. Think the Hornets trade Kemba?
I don't know. I think they really, really want to keep him.
Oh yeah, I don't blame them. But at the same time, they're going to keep being this Charlotte Hornets team if they do. So
right.
Interesting. 3 games to go. Let's push on. Hit that like button while you're here, since we're at the halfway point. Those are very helpful. Every like, every view, every comment, super helpful for us as a site. So least we could do, hit that thumbs up. The Utah Jazz hosting the Detroit Pistons. 108.75 implied total for the Jazz. 100.75 for the Pistons. Just another really gross fantasy game. We'll start on the Utah side, where the Jazz are still without any semblance of real point guards. Donovan Mitchell, 8,800 on FanDuel, 9,200 on DraftKings, $38 on Yahoo. We have Donovan Mitchell's ownership on DraftKings at 2%, which makes me really like Donovan Mitchell, even though I think he's overpriced. What do you want to do with him today?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's overpriced. I think that we have enough of a sample from last season where he's played without any of these point guards on the floor to have at least some idea of what he is. And it's, like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy, which, assuming he's going to play 37, 38 minutes, it's really nice. But when you start considering that you're paying more money for Donovan Mitchell than for like DeMar DeRozan, or, you're paying $1,300 more for Mitchell than for Kemba, even with, concerns about Kemba, it's still to where if they were all similarly owned, Mitchell would be my least favorite guy there. But, if we are going to have him projected that low in ownership and that continues throughout the day, then it becomes a different conversation where, there's just value in getting someone like Mitchell at, 2% ownership.
Tremaine Booker says no way he'll be 2%. I mean, I would expect it to end up at like 4 or 5 or something, depending on where this news comes. But he has to be that low if people play James Harden and Anthony Davis. Like, you can only put in so many guys above 9K before you functionally cannot build a roster any longer.
I could see people prioritizing Mitchell over those guys with the lack of value and with kind of like recency bias or confirmation bias, because I think he's been better than we should expect him to be over these 2 games. But everyone that was going into those 2 games, like Donovan Mitchell is going to like a superstar that has to score, 60 points now. They've basically been proven right. So I could see people being like, oh, like he's still underpriced.
Yeah. It gets a little bit more ownership on FanDuel, only 8,800, only $38 on Yahoo. So there's some appeal there for me, but I feel like I like him the most, oddly enough, at DK if that ownership is that low. Weird. Super weird. I don't really have any interest in Gobert here. 9,500 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DK, $36 on Yahoo. Just seems like you're paying a lot in a game that's really not that optimal from a fantasy perspective.
I like him on DraftKings. That price tag didn't really move, and he's just playing so many minutes right now. I mean, he played 39 last game. He played, I think it was 36 the game before that. He's been playing 36 pretty regularly, and this is a, obviously massive Detroit front court where I expect Gobert to be out there as much as possible. So I think I'm a little bit higher on Gobert here. He's averaged 1.2 fantasy points per minute, or DraftKings points per minute this season, without Burks, Exum, or Rubio on the floor. But even over the last month or so, he's averaged about 1.2, 1.25 DraftKings points per minute, regardless of who's on the floor. So I just think with the minutes he's playing and in this matchup against a big front court where I expect him to once again play huge minutes, it's pretty appealing.
It's just another case of there being 15 centers on DK. Yeah. AD, Randall, Aldridge, Capella, Gasol, Jackson, Drummond, Willie Cauley-Stein, Mirotic, Nurkic, Horford, Jared Allen. That's when I get to Gobert. Like, it's just the sea of dudes. I haven't even named Bagley or Blake Griffin or Montrezl Harrell. There's just too many dudes at center nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I have Gobert projected higher than Donovan Mitchell, or about the same as Donovan Mitchell.
I have Mitchell 4 points ahead of him on DK. It's tight. It's just on DK, it's really hard for me to ever pick out a specific center unless they're grading out incredibly, and I think Gobert is just simply fine. I don't know. Does Andre Drummond get his shot blocked a lot?
I don't know. I would assume that Gobert could pick up some blocks here, though.
Yeah. Royce O'Neal, 4,900 FanDuel, 47 DK, 15 on Yahoo. I think he's probably the only thing that's like resembling a value play today, and he's still already almost 5K. How do you want to handle Royce O'Neal?
Yeah, I think that price tag's starting to get pretty egregious on him. I mean, yeah, he's playing huge minutes. He played 40 minutes, then he played 37 minutes. He contributes in a lot of different ways. It's just that he doesn't contribute much of anything.
Yeah.
So when he was sub 4K, he was a guy where it's like impossible for him to really hurt you. Now it's to a point where it's kind of tough for him to like be someone you have to have.
He's like the Utah slow-mo.
Yeah, basically. It's like a worse slow-mo.
Yeah. On FanDuel for 4,900, knowing that you have to have 2 small forwards, he is about as close to, I don't want to say a lock because his performance is nonsense, but like there are only so many pieces that exist out there right now to allow you to fit in higher salary guys. And Royce O'Neal playing, in my opinion, 35 plus minutes today is really one of the only options you have at that position.
Or you could just take a $3,500 guy and just punt the spot.
That is a very good point and might be the spot to do it today. Think about it from like a replacement level standpoint sometimes. It's kind of tricky. I don't know. That should be a popular spot to like, who's a good $3,500 garbage small forward today? Wrong site. Alrighty, small forward on FanDuel. Man, there's not even like functional dudes. Omri Caspi at 3,600 should probably be more popular on FanDuel than you would ever expect him to be, given the scenario for today. Otherwise, you're looking at like Darius Miller, Justin Jackson, Jake Layman, Stanley Johnson, James Ennis, Miles Bridges, Gary Clark. Those are the guys that I have projected for any time today in those salaries. So
Yeah, that sounds awful.
yeah. So like, I don't know. Royce O'Neal is sort of the best of the bunch, but ugh, that's gross. That that really does feel like a position where you should just be like, I'll scrape the bottom of the barrel. Don't spend your salary there, people. Let's go. Oh, we're not done with the Jazz. Anybody else here? Jingles, Favors, Crowder, Grayson Allen.
Not really. I mean, Ingles is fine. I think that 6,100, his price tag hasn't really moved on DraftKings either. I think that it's a perfectly fine price tag. He's obviously the secondary ball handler behind Donovan Mitchell, and you're seeing their minutes staggered, so one of them is always on the floor. So I think that he's perfectly fine play. It's just that I don't think he's as productive as he was against the Lakers, where he grabbed 12 rebounds in that game. Like, that's not what you're normally going to see.
No.
I think that he's more often than not going to score somewhere in that like 32, 33 fantasy point range. And it just ends up being like a perfectly fine, but not good game for his price. So definitely someone that I'd pay close attention to ownership on.
Okay. 13% right now on DK. 20 on FanDuel.
Do you think Favors gets a couple extra minutes here because of the size of Detroit? A couple extra, meaning like 28 as opposed to 25.
I have him in for 27, so I guess.
Yes, I'm giving him 28. That's what he played against Chicago, but it's just dealing with a Drummond and Blake front court. I think that it's reasonably likely that Favors closes this game.
Yeah. I feel like they should play like Ekpe Udoh today, but that's neither here nor there. Well, is he healthy?
Yeah. I think so.
I'm a fan. I want more Ekpe Udoh in my life. I don't know why I'm bringing him up on a Monday slate. So I'll probably just shut up about that. Let's go to the Pistons unless you have any other Jazz thoughts.
No, that's it.
9,500 for Drummond on FanDuel, 8,700 on DK, $36 on Yahoo. I'm pretty excited. Even on this 6-game slate, I'm not getting an overwhelming amount of Andre Drummond for him to just underwhelm me like he's been for the past couple days. So how do you want to manage Drummond and Blake?
I don't really have anything here.
Neither do I.
Yeah. Like they're both, obviously they're good, but as of right now, I can't imagine I'm getting a lot of them.
You see Blake's price on FanDuel?
No.
10-1.
Oh.
$41 on Yahoo. Yeah, he's just... This doesn't strike me as the spot where I want to pay $10,100 for Blake Griffin flying face first into the Jazz defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's 9,400 in a vacuum on DraftKings is fine, but when you start thinking about the other guys in that price range, across positions, but even like at center, you have Rudy Gobert, who's $1,000 less. You have Donovan Mitchell in the same game, who's 9,200. So it's just really, really tough to get to Blake at that price, I think.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think he has any beef with the Jazz ownership. I don't think he's going to run away from the Jazz owner before the game starts. So
what happened?
You didn't see this?
No.
Oh my God. So before
I've been living in a bubble all weekend.
So before the Clippers game, Blake's back in LA for the first time in warmups. Ballmer tries to like walk over to him to like say, hey, you could see Ballmer being like, Blake. Blake sees him, like Blake is walking off the court, sees him out of the corner of his eye, and dead sprints dead into the locker room.
That's great.
You gotta check out the video. It's fantastic. He's just like, he catches him and then he's just gone right down the tunnel. And he started from like, I don't know, like the wing area on the court. So like he made like Ballmer is on the floor and he just gone. Just absolutely gone. He ran away so weird. It was like Forrest Gump running.
Ballmer wasn't even the owner most of the time he was there, was he?
He said something about the whole Blake situation.
Okay.
I mean, no, he was the owner. Like, yeah, he gave him the contract.
Okay, I thought it was Sterling.
No. Yeah, no, they re-upped him and then traded him like almost immediately.
Right, yeah, I remember that. I just didn't.
Yeah, Ballmer's been there a while now.
Oh, okay.
When did he take the team over? Steve Ballmer Clippers purchase. I mean, this article is from 2014.
Okay, so yeah.
So, yeah, he's been there a hot minute. I could see why he would hate Sterling.
Right.
He wouldn't run, but he'd probably tell Sterling to fuck off. He'd probably stick around for that one.
Yeah.
Ballmer's just like a general dick, not a very, very, very racist piece of shit.
Right.
All right. Do you want any other part of the Pistons? Jackson, Bullock, Ish Smith, if he's playing?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't know. If you knew that Ish Smith was going to get 20 minutes today, would you have interest in $3,300 Ish Smith?
Interest? No. Would he end up in maybe some lineups? Like, yeah. Okay. I mean, it's still, you're not expecting, like, if you tell me he's going to play 20 minutes, I'm thinking I get like 16 fantasy points.
Okay. That's I have him in for 20. I have him in for 20 minutes and 16.3 fantasy points. So cool. Yeah. Nailed that shit. All right, let's get out of this game. All right, 2 real games now to close this out. The Sacramento Kings hosting the Portland Trailblazers. And this is not anything that I would have ever expected to say before this season started. Let me make sure that I have this in right before I make my little, or this is going to go the way of the Kemba Cody Zeller news. What is the line here? All right, I do have it in right. 114.5 implied total for the Sacramento Kings, 112.5 for the Blazers. The Sacramento Kings are 2-point favorites against the Blazers in January. I didn't see that one coming. This would have been Blazers by 6. You asked me what this line was before the season. So, alrighty. We'll start on the Kings side, which this team is really hard to peg down now that all of these people are starting to be healthy. Willie Cauley-Stein is meh for me. Bogdan Bogdanovic is the piece that stands out the most for 5,600 on DraftKings, and he's at 22% ownership. So, do you want my boy Bags? No one really has like a fantastic price, so I'm anxious to get your thoughts. The floor is yours for the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it's tough now that everyone's back healthy. I think that Bags is interesting because he played 25 minutes last game. He's still sub 5K on DraftKings. Like, I would so much rather get 25, 26 minutes from Marvin Bagley than 37 minutes from Royce O'Neal. I don't think that one's that close.
What do you have Bagley? You have Bagley in for 20 what minutes?
I mean, he played 25.2 last game. I don't know if that happens again, but it at least shows that he's not limited, and he was playing, a bunch of minutes before he got hurt. So I imagine that we're back to, Bjelica barely playing and Bagley stealing a bunch of time.
Okay. I have Bagley in for 23 minutes right now, but I honestly I don't know how to shake out Bagley, Bjelica, Shumpert, Jackson, Giles. Like, I don't. Yogi Ferrell seems to be getting like regular minutes now. I don't really know how to hash it all out.
Yeah, it's a mess. The only thing I'm happy to see is that, wait, what did they do?
Yeah.
So no, I feel like Popcorn Machine might be wrong. Yeah, I think Popcorn Machine's probably just wrong because it has Harry Giles playing like alongside Bagley or alongside Cauley-Stein, but like not in place of him. So yeah, I don't know, ignore that. But I was gonna say it. I'm happy to see Costa Koufos not play 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
Like Cauley-Stein and Giles should be that center rotation, and that would be good. But yeah, so I think that Marvin Bagley in tournaments makes sense. Like, there's no need to go there in cash games, but in tournaments, taking a chance on him getting back into that 26 to 27 minute role consistently, I think makes sense. De'Aaron Fox's price on DraftKings has come down to where I think he's still a decent play. The minutes are just concerning, though. I mean, he's playing, 30 to 32 minutes much more often than he's playing 34, and I think that we kind of have to factor that in. So yeah, it's an example of a team where it's an appealing game, and there's a lot of good fantasy producers like on a permanent basis, but the entire team's healthy and kind of for the most part priced up. So it's tough to actually get to a lot of them.
What are your thoughts on minimum priced Harry Giles on FanDuel?
I think that's without really like obviously without having made lineups there and without playing around with roster construction. I think that that's a pretty appealing spot to go to on a slate with no value because he's the kind of guy that in his 16 to 18 minutes he can actually give you a good game, and then if he doesn't, you just drop him.
And the key there's the caveat word for everybody. So if you're playing the Josh says caveat and drinking game in the morning, there it is. He's a power forward.
Yep.
So you can feel a little bit more comfortable paying $3,500 for a power forward and not completely removing yourself from, like a 8 center crop of legitimate options.
Right.
Giles at 11% ownership on FanDuel right now, but I like the idea of jamming him in as a potential drop. Terrifying, but gotta do what you gotta do. I don't know. I wanted to like this so much more, but I think I like a little bit more on the Portland side.
Yeah, same here.
9,400 for Dame on FanDuel, 88 on DK, $34 on Yahoo. Dame is my number one point guard on Yahoo. $34 is simply too cheap for me. And I would be happy to have some Dame on both FanDuel and DK. What do you think of Dame tonight?
Yeah, I think that it's obviously a nice matchup for everyone on Portland. It's a pace-up spot. I think that the price tag is more than fair. 88 for Dame or 9K for Lillard or for Kyrie. I think that they're very similar, but I would give the edge to Dame in this, based on matchup and pace and everything. So, yeah, whatever Dame I get, I'm happy with. I normally don't get a lot of him, but I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. I'd love to know how many minutes you have Nurkic in for right now.
32.
Okay. That's something we probably want to talk about. His minutes have been really weird. 25, 30, 21, 19, 31, 30 over his last 6 games. I don't know what to do with him. Why 32? What's your thought process there outside of like this is the perfect 32 is his most likely minutes if the game is close? Is that it? Uh-oh.
Yeah, they playing the games close. I think that he gets there. Like yesterday, he played 25 minutes, but he had 5 fouls. The day before that, he played 30 minutes. It was a 20-something point game, 31 point game. 21 minutes against Chicago with 4 fouls, 19 minutes against the Knicks with 4 fouls, 31 minutes against Houston, 30 against OKC, 38 in overtime against Sacramento. The games where he hasn't played 30 to 32 minutes, it's been either a blowout or fouls.
So, I mean, I guess this is the argument of how do you want to project minutes? Do you want to do it as like a most likely scenario or a when the game is moving optimally, this is how the minutes shake out? And I tend to agree with you more than I agree with whatever the fuck I just put in here for 29. So I'm with you there. I need to make that adjustment and bump him up. It's the conversation I needed to have, why we bat this shit around.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that like 32, I'm also kind of like I just love the spot for Nurkic.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of make sure that I don't end up like looking back at my lineups after lock, like, wait, how do I have 1% Nurk? But I think that 30 to 32 is like absolutely the median like projection range for Nurkic.
Okay, I just bumped him to 31 now. That puts him as my number 1 center on FanDuel. He is 6th on DraftKings, but that's again it's a symptom of the position.
Yep.
There are a lot of very comparable guys in like the 3 to 12 range, but that does make me like Nurk significantly more than I did prior to this, and it just goes to show you how much 2 minutes of a projection can affect how people stack up across the entire scope. That's an extra 3 fantasy points. Like that's a lot. you don't think about it in those margins like that, but it's really aggressive. CJ, he's CJ, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Only $24 on Yahoo, so if you want to be let down, feel free to jam in CJ McCollum. I just want him to leave Portland now, so I can I could look at him through a fresh lens, because now I liked him a lot for years, and now I'm really starting to sour on him. So, fuck off, CJ. Go back to Lehigh. Aminu, 5,500 on FanDuel, 5K on DK, $19 on Yahoo. Another fine guy to cycle in, I guess.
Yeah, he's another one where I'm not excited about him, but I think it's a good spot. I think he probably plays around 32 minutes, so whatever.
This is the type of game I would want Aminu.
Yeah, exactly.
There's any extra possessions I can get are good for guys like that. I don't have much interest in anything else here.
I think ET is fine. He's 4,400 on a slate with no value. He's a small forward on FanDuel, which is nice. He should probably play around, 26 minutes.
I have him in for 24 right now. If I bumped him to 26, he probably becomes a really nice value option on FanDuel. I wish that Denver was on this slate. I started digging into the Jokic Embiid stats this year. The per 36 number. I don't know why I'm thinking of this. I guess because of Nurkic. So maybe tomorrow I'll beat Lofty over the head with it. But I'm starting to think that Jokic might just be the best center in basketball, not just offensively.
Yeah.
His per 36 numbers are like 27, 14, and 12 or something stupid. Like, he averages like 7 more assists a game than Embiid. It's insanity.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, maybe the best. I don't know why I'm bringing it up. Nurkic tripped me up. Let's close this out. Clippers and Pelicans. Late night hammer, the very clearly best fantasy game of the day. 120.5 implied total for the Clips, 117.5 for the Pelicans. We will start on the Clippers side. Massive pace up spot for them. They are significantly better priced on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. Tobias Harris, Danilo Gallinari. We'll talk about them in tandem. 7,600, 7,729 for Harris, 73, 72, 28 for Gallo. Do you have a preference between the two? Do you like both guys?
I always prefer the one that's cheaper. I think that they're just very similar from a fantasy standpoint. They both are good per minute producers, and neither one is a guy with like a huge standard deviation where you're expecting like monster games out of him very often. So normally I just prefer the cheaper one. I do think it's a good matchup for both. I mean, this New Orleans team plays fast. They don't play, great defensively. So I like them, but at like 77 and 72 on DraftKings, I just think there's going to be guys that I like better.
Yeah, Gallo for 73 on FanDuel, getting 23% expected ownership, grading out really well for me. Third at his position. I like both of these guys on Yahoo quite a bit. They are third and fourth, respectively. It's just
a small forward on FanDuel,
right? Yes, he is, and there is not a lot to like there. He's the most expensive small forward today.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, you can get a guy that plays center in a small forward spot on FanDuel. That's appealing.
Here's what I consider to be like solid plays at small forward today on FanDuel and their price. Gallo's at 73, Joe Ingles at 63, Mirotic at 61, Nick Batum 55, Royce O'Neal 49, Joe Harris 47, Bertans 44, Eton Moore 42. That is awful.
Yeah.
That is downright awful. Oh my God. Small forward is dreadful today. What do you want to do with Montrezl Harrell? 7,800 on FanDuel, 71 on DK, $26 on Yahoo. He scares me with that price tag.
Yeah, I was just looking. Like, I have no idea what to make of him because on one hand, like we saw that stretch where Gortat started playing more minutes. But it seems like we're kind of getting back into like a Montrezl Harrell plays a ton of minutes situation. Like their last game against Detroit, that's a team where they have a big traditional center in Drummond, and Harrell still went out there and played 33.7 minutes. Gortat started each half and then never came back. So if they're going back to him playing a ton, like if I project him for 32 minutes, he becomes a really good play. If I project him for 28, then he's not.
I have him in for 26 right now. Am I outlandish with that?
I think that, well, so I mean, you have Gortat. So here's the thing. I think that if you're going to project Harrell for 26, Gortat's going to become one of your best value plays.
I have Gortat at 18 right now.
Okay, and then Gallo playing the rest.
Yeah. So, like $3,700 Gortat becomes like something you kind of got to look at on this slate on FanDuel, but I don't know. It's their minutes. I don't trust it. They're all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm going to just go with like 14 minutes for Gortat, like 32 or 30, probably like 30 for Harrell, and then Gallinari with the rest.
Okay.
But I don't know if Gallinari, I don't think even played center against Detroit. Not that that's really surprising.
You don't think that we see more Gortat today because of Julius Randle?
I just thought that they would have played more Gortat against Drummond.
Maybe they lean athleticism there instead of just like sturdiness. I don't know. I don't
know. Randall is Montrezl Harrell, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree.
That's normally how I try and guess matchups is like what guy is the same size as the guy he's going against.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm gonna pull 2 minutes from Gortat and give them back to Harrell. I like where we're at there. That puts Harrell at 4th, 6th, and 5th across FanDuel, DK, and Yahoo. I'm cool with that. I think Lou Will looks fine on FanDuel and looks pretty nice for $23 on Yahoo. I could take it or leave it for $6,700 on DK. And then Pat Bev looks like a solid-ish punt option for $3,800 on FanDuel. You seeing anything else from the Clippers that you want to prioritize?
No, I mean, I think you're right with $3,700 Bev on like DraftKings too. Not that you're super confident in his minutes or in his production, but it's just one of the few guys on this slate right now that at least has some path to playing big minutes at that price tag.
Okay. Oh God, this is gonna be this game is gonna make or break a lot of people.
Yeah,
getting Harris and Gallo right will be crazy because like you basically can't play the two of them together and still have a Harden and AD. So seeing where that ownership ends up and seeing which one of those guys makes the move will be pretty paramount for the day. Let's talk about the Pels. Anthony Davis, 12-7 on FanDuel, 11-6 on DK, $58 on Yahoo, $1 cheaper than Harden. He's at 1.78 fantasy points per minute over his last 30 days. Oh my God. How do you want to manage AD and how do you rank him alongside James Harden?
Yes, I mean, I have him behind Harden, but still really, really good. And I think it just comes down to the ownership for me on DraftKings. He is a little bit cheaper, which is nice. This game in general is much more appealing than the Houston-Memphis game. But on DraftKings, where you have the double-double, triple-double bonus, and you only lose half a point for turnovers, you have a 3-point bonus, it just makes it so much better for Harden as far as the scoring goes. Whereas on FanDuel, scoring favors Anthony Davis. And so, I think that I probably the last time these two were on a slate together, I ended up having way more Anthony Davis than Harden on FanDuel, and I ended up with more Harden than Davis on DraftKings. I imagine I'll be in the same spot here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you one bit there. On FanDuel right now, I have them separated by 1/10 of a point, which is hilarious to think about. 63.5 to AD, 63.4 to Harden.
Yeah.
So you gotta pick between the two. I feel more comfortable with James Harden in a cash scenario. I feel more comfortable with AD in a GPP scenario. And I think that is solely because I don't trust AD to like not take a 5-minute break for a hangnail or some shit.
Right.
Drew Holiday, Julius Randle. Do you have any real interest in either of these two guys because they're flying off the page for me?
Yeah. I think the price tags offer upside. I think that Holiday loses some productivity because of Elf being back. I think that Randle, loses some minutes because of Nico being back. but I think that still it's just such an appealing spot for both of these guys. I think that you still get around 38 minutes out of Holiday. I think that you probably get 32 to 34 from Randall still. So, yeah, whatever I get of these guys, I'm perfectly happy with.
Matt Finesson said, "How is Harden 13-3 when he's playing Memphis?" I know he should be fucking 14-3. Holiday second across the position, all three sites. Randall second, first across FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. How do you want to manage Nico, and how many minutes do you have him in for? I've got 28.
So I'm going 28 on Nico.
Yeah.
5,700. Take it or leave it, really. It's like he doesn't grade out great for me, but then again, neither does like anyone on this slate outside of a handful of guys. So I just wouldn't want to play him like with Randall.
No, neither would I. What do you have in for Randall for minutes?
32.
I have him in for 33. We got a question. Did I get any Harden and Davis lines on Yahoo when I ran my crunch? I can't imagine I did. I mean, I barely got any James Harden, so yeah. No Harden AD. But I barely got either one of those guys. Again, it was 8 o'clock in the morning when I did that. So yeah, I'm gonna have AD, I'm gonna have Holiday, I'm gonna have Randall. I'll have a little bit of Mirotic on either FanDuel or Yahoo. Not as much interest for 5,700 on DraftKings. Do you want any Peyton or Eton Moore?
I think Peyton's still interesting. I had talked about it before their last game that his minutes look really bad since he came back from injury, but they've been involved in a ton of blowouts over that span. The one competitive game where he wasn't in foul trouble, he played 34 minutes. And then against Minnesota in their last game, it was a competitive game. He played 26.6 minutes, but he picked up a foul with 5:37 left in the fourth. He subbed out at the 5:15 mark and then just never came back. So I still think he could have played like 32 minutes.
Okay. I have him in for 28 right now. Could certainly see more there. And at 6,200 on FanDuel, I think that's more than enough minutes.
$20. He wasn't in foul trouble, though, so I don't really know what was going on there. But
I don't know what to make of this team sometimes. I just want them to be better. Or I want them to trade AD. Either way.
It is worth pointing out, and I think this is actually really important, so when Peyton subbed out there, Julius Randle came in. So essentially they closed against Minnesota with Nico at the 3, with Randle, Davis, Nico all on the floor. I think that they can do it against this Clippers team too. Like there's no reason that Nico can't be out there with, Tobias Harris.
I hate this team. I just hate that. I like Mirotic, Randle, and AD, and Drew Holiday. I hate that Mirotic has to play the 3 if you want all your best players out on the floor.
Yeah. Yep.
Alrighty. That is it. We have gone through all 6 games. So it's time to hit a couple Thrive props. I just dropped the link into the chat. bit.ly/Awesemo. You can get $10 on a $10 deposit, 20 on 100, and 50 on 200 if you want to check out Thrive. Adam and I are going to take a look at our favorite props for the day. Let me pull this up. Hop in here. First one up on the list. 100 points on both sides here. James Harden, points plus rebounds, 39.5. Oh my God.
That's going to be the over for me.
Yeah, me too. I got him at a crisp 45.
Yeah, I have him at 38.7 points.
I have him at 37.7. So yeah, I get it. I'm almost there on points.
Yeah.
And you get and it's even action. So that would probably be my most popular prop selection just based on that gap. I'd be really anxious to see the ownership. I'll keep an eye on that in the morning. Moving down a little bit, LaMarcus Aldridge, even action on the over and under. 31.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Not really the way I normally think about LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, I'm smashing the over here, though. I have him at 20, rounding, but I have him at 27, 10, and 2.5.
You have him at 27 real points?
Yeah.
Damn, I only have him at 22. but I get 34.8, so I'm still smashing the over from a total, but you're really, really smashing the over.
Yeah, I love LaMarcus Aldridge.
I can get behind that. And some of these are real ugly. Ooh. Okay. Marvin Bagley, 110 points for the over, 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists. That's one we've certainly never talked about in this before.
Yeah, I think it's pretty efficient too. I have him at in 25 minutes. I have him at 19, 20, like 20 and a half.
I have him at 19.6, so I missed it by a tenth of a point here. So I'm taking the over just because I get the additional points, and I have them right at that line.
Yep.
Any of these standing out for you? Are you looking at them right now?
Yeah, I have them up. It's just an ugly slate of games.
Yeah, it really is.
Kind of. Like it's. I think it's gonna be a fun one to play. It's just like.
It strikes me, as of right now, it strikes me as one of the more difficult slates we've had in the NBA in a long time.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like I do think it's like a fun one to play. As far as the like challenging, and people will probably make mistakes if things stay how it is. But it's definitely just not one where you look at players and you're just like, oh, this looks fun.
Right.
Man. All right. I think the Derek Favors one's interesting just because the minutes can be anywhere from like 24 to 28. 18 and a half points plus rebounds, even action on both sides.
Yeah, so I have him at 12 points, 7.2 rebounds. So we're looking at, 19 and change total. So I get slightly over here.
I have him at 21-3 if he plays 28 minutes.
There you go. Pound that over.
Yep.
Brian Shanahan, if you follow that link, you don't have to enter a promo code. So bit.ly/Awesemo will get you $10 on your first $10 deposit, 20 on 100, and 50 on 200. You don't have to enter a code. You just have to follow that link. Final one. Anything standing out that you would want to touch on?
No, not really.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what could be fun. I always like when points are involved.
Yeah.
Or like really egregious. Okay, this one's kind of. We don't ever talk about it like this. Tobias Harris, 2.5 assists. And you get 115 for the over. Not much of an assist guy, that Tobias Harris. I got him at 2.3.
I have him at 2.5.
Yeah, so I would imagine that particular prop doesn't get a lot of action.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a very clear spot to take an over because of the 115 to the over.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure.
But I can't imagine people looking at it like, oh, I'm smashing Tobias Harris assists today.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And it's a good example of how, because a lot of times we talk about when our projections are in line with the line on Thrive, that we just wouldn't pick it. But on this one, I think it's different because our projections are in line with the line, but the action is just so heavily skewed toward the over.
Yeah. It's another one where I want to pay attention to it to see not just who's on the over and who's on the under, but how many times that particular prop gets picked out of 20, because it strikes me as the type of prop that would be like in the bottom 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be too, because for one, it's Tobias Harris assists. For two, it's Tobias Harris. Like, it's not like it's a marquee name. It's not a marquee stat for that player.
Right. Alrighty, everybody. That is it. In and out, hour and 15 minutes. 6-game slate. Today we'll have the deeper dive from 5:30 to 6:30. Lock is at 7:30 tonight, so keep that in mind. Live before lock, myself, Fast Eddie Fear from 6:30 to 7:30. Lofty will have the deep dive out in the early afternoon. There might be tear stains on the paper today after that Eagles game. That's a rough end for BDN. Hopefully Alshon Jeffrey is keeping himself good thoughts today. Not great. Did you see the quote from him today or last night?
No, I felt bad just watching that game though.
He said that Foles went up to talk to him right after it, and they asked him what Foles said, and he said, like, you're still awesome. If it wasn't for you, like, the city of Philadelphia wouldn't have a Super Bowl. And he was just like, but I feel bad because I let the entire city of Philadelphia down. It's just like, fuck, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Whew.
Did you see he was playing through cracked ribs too?
I did not see. Oh, I saw, actually. Okay, so I didn't know that he was playing through cracked ribs. I did see a tweet with like an X-ray in it of ribs. So now I understand what I was looking at, but I looked at no context whatsoever.
Okay, yeah, he was playing through cracked ribs.
Yeah, that's probably makes it a little bit more difficult to raise your arms above your head.
Yeah.
Crazy game. That's all I got. You got anything else? Anything you want to plug?
Nope.
Alrighty. Well, best of luck, everybody. You guys know the drill. Tune into all the other stuff. We'll be in Slack most of the day. And we'll talk to you again tonight. Adios.